they enjoy, they treat free citizens as babies that, can't take responsibility for themselves and others. So I was saying all along, we have to give business people an opportunity. Tell them what the rules are, the masks, which rule of masks do you have this month? And, tell the business people what the rules are, and then let them try to adapt their business to that, and you'll have ingenuity, and people will at least have the freedom to try to earn a living. But putting a national lockdown, stay-at-home orders is like house arrest. It's other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history.
Welcome to the Robb Show, the future #1 podcast in America. It is September 28th, and we are 35 days from the beginning of the biggest election in modern history. It's going to be crazy. I can't wait to see how these debates go tomorrow night. We are in episode number 10, and what started out as 10 shows to kind of gauge the performance has turned into a relatively large and loyal audience, and I wanted to say thanks to everybody for listening for so long. It's been quite a ride for us, a lot of pressure actually, because once we got to rolling, I started getting emails and texts and messages and phone calls. When's the next one? And as everyone knows, I have a business to run and a family to raise and so forth. So it has been it's been quite a journey. I've loved it. I'm enjoying it, and we're going to find out where to go with it after this because we have a lot of opportunity in many different directions. But just wanted to say thanks to all of my friends, family, and all of their associates that they've hooked up with the show for listening. It is quite humbling. So just wanted to start at that first clip and introduction was from Bill Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, and he compares the lockdowns and all of the mandates that are coming through the governments and the governors to slavery. And I think from the very beginning, and the reason we started this was because I could not believe how easily the American people were jumping on board with mandates. And it was driving me absolutely bananas because regardless of whether you believe the masks work, regardless of whether you believe this is the biggest virus and it's going to kill millions and millions of people around the world, I don't. Many people don't. I'm not the only one. And when you have disagreements in the country, you cannot have mandates going down on one side. This is why we vote. This is a democracy. This is a republic. You can't have your way just because you think you're right. We vote on it. If we vote and everybody says we have to wear a mask, I'll wear my mask because we have voted on it. I will not take a mandate from a governor, a president, or anybody who sees themselves as the king of all people. Not going for it. Not going to be a part of it. So Bill Barr kind of outlines the way I see it. And as luck would have it, on Friday, my son is with me. And Friday, we were very excited to learn that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida lifted the mask mandates. He lifted the restrictions on bars and restaurants. The way it works now is a business can certainly say you have to wear a mask to enter, but there will be no prosecutions. There is no government mandate to which anybody can get in trouble for it. I guess if you cause a scene or trespassing, you might get in a little trouble, but there's no longer a government mandate on masks that will be enforced by the state of Florida. And then part two, the restaurants and bars that I like to frequent with my family. I like to go out and eat. I like to go out and have a drink with my wife every now and again, and my kids, my adult kids. We can now do that. Governor Ron DeSantis has said that if you have, it's 100% capacity if you want, has to be at least 50%. So no local municipality can override at least 50% capacity. And if you are any less than 100%, you've got to provide information to his office as to why you are keeping your business down to only 50%. My guess is that about 99.9% of the restaurants and bars in the state of Florida will be wide open to 100%, because if you're not, you're insane. Business isn't going to last very long. You cannot operate a restaurant at 50% with low margins. It's completely impossible to do, and was running thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of bars and restaurants out of business. I find it to be absolutely ludicrous. Couldn't even stand it for another second. But here we are in Florida. It feels like we are free once more. So immediately on Saturday, my son and I went out to play golf. I couldn't wait to see what kind of a response we were going to get from the public down here in Florida. We're in a Orlando suburb, and we went to play golf on Saturday. So as soon as we walked into the pro shop to get our drinks, buy our golf balls, and get ready to play a round of golf on a very hot and muggy Saturday, I looked around inside and saw 3 people wearing masks. We walked outside, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to count and see what it's like on the inside, mask versus unmasked. So I walked back inside. They had 24 people inside of the pro shop, 3 people wearing masks out of 24. So that tells me that at least where I'm at, which is in a very diverse portion of the Orlando suburbs, men, women, black, white, Hispanic, you name it, we've got them. They're here. Every race and religion is down here in Orlando, Florida. So it's a very a decent indication of the rest of the country. And 3 of 24 people had a mask on their face. And I think those 3 people didn't hear the news that they didn't have to wear a mask, if the truth be known, because when you start to see the servers not wearing masks, people behind the serving you drinks and at the bar not wearing masks, all of a sudden you go, well, wait a minute. My son said to me, wow, it's kind of just, I'm almost conditioned to see everybody serving me wearing a mask. It's the first thing he said when we walked in. And it was nice to see some normalcy back to the world again. But as I said in episode 3, I want to run down a little bit later on all of the predictions we made on the first 9 episodes, all of the things that we were trying to get across to everyone as a person who's very in tune with media and politics, and the combination of those two. I've been trying to weave a story from episode 1, and we'll talk through that in just a little bit. But I wanted to start because in episode 3, before there were any mask mandates, at that particular point, you could wear a mask if you wanted to, but there was not one mandate anywhere that I was aware of in the entire country. And I said in episode 3, I played a clip of Nancy Pelosi speaking to George Stephanopoulos, and she said she thought we should have mandated masks across the country. And I remember saying in episode 3, and we can look back and play the clips if you want, but I said, here it comes. Mask mandates are coming. And now that we are here on September 28th, almost every place in the country has mask mandates, whether they be inside and outside or solely inside or what have you. The corporations have taken hold, and they've made it so that you can't go into their establishments, whether it be Walmart or any grocery store in the country, PetSmart, Best Buy, you name it. If it's a big corporation in the United States, you got a mask on if you want to go inside, as predicted in episode 3. But just to prove the point, the very first press conference that Joe Biden gave once he announced Kamala Harris as his running mate, he immediately said that he thought it wise and that he would institute a nationwide mask mandate from day one. Tanner, can you play Biden clip 1 mask mandates, please? Thanks.
I'll end by saying that it goes back to the study some months ago by Columbia University, saying that we didn't have to be this way. If the president had acted sooner, would have saved, just 1 week earlier, would have saved 30-some thousand lives. 2 weeks earlier, I think it was 51 or 57,000 lives. I hope we've learned a lesson. Hope the president has learned the lesson. But again, this is not about Democrat, Republican, or Independent. It's about saving Americans' lives. So let's institute a mask mandate nationwide, starting immediately.
There you go. That's the very first press conference. Once he got Kamala Harris on the ticket, he was calling for nationwide mask mandates. And why? Why would you mandate every man, woman, and child from California to New York to Phoenix to Texas to Florida, you name it, wherever you're at, inside or out, mask mandates? Well, if you're trying to win an election, wouldn't you want somebody to be miserable leading up to the election? Because I know a lot of you don't mind wearing the mask. I can't figure it out to save my soul. They are absolutely miserable to me. And most people that I talk to that have to wear them, especially if they have to wear them outside, can't stand it. So why anybody would want to wear a mask on a daily basis and find it to be okay, it's just something I don't understand. God love you if you do. I just don't get it because it seems very cumbersome, very sweaty, very nauseating to wear a mask all day, every day by mandate. But nonetheless, that's where Joe Biden wanted to be. That's where the Democrat Party is going to be because they want to make you miserable. And if you've been listening to Joe Biden, he says we should at least wear a mask for the next 3 months. At the time when he was saying that, 3 months would have led you right into November. And I wonder, Tanner, what is in November? It's the election. And he wants you to wear that mask up until the election. And then magically, he could take the mask off you and make you feel real good again. However he wants to do that, through a vaccine or whatever kind of nonsense they got to make you feel good. But they want you to be miserable right up until the election. And that leads me into, I just happen to be watching, as I said, I'm a nonstop critic of the networks and the media. So I have to watch them to see what kind of games they are into because they are all completely corporate driven. They have an agenda. It has nothing to do with giving you the news. As I've said from day one, you can prove it 1,000 times. If anybody wants to come sit and watch TV with me, watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. I can tell you, I can coordinate what their political agenda is by the sponsors on their programs. So I happened to be watching one the other day, and this guy named Scott Atlas, he's a Stanford doctor, scientist, whatever he is, but he is the new face of the coronavirus task force run by the Trump administration. He took over for the brilliant Darth Fauci, who I said says something different every single time he opens his mouth. Depends on what channel you're on, but he's going to come back with the second round of the coronavirus. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. Wherever he's at, I don't pay attention to him much anymore because I know what he's going to say, but I would assume if he speaks between now and the election, he's going to be warning about the second wave of the deadly pandemic known as COVID-19. But I just happened to be watching on Fox News, Scott Atlas doing an interview with this guy named John Scott. And I don't know much about John Scott, but he seems like the typical news anchor, got the voice for it, got the, this is John Scott with Fox News, that kind of character. And he's doing an interview with Scott Atlas. Tanner, can we play a little bit of this? Let me set it up just for a minute. The conversation is around, and I wonder how many people saw it, where this middle school football game has a security guard come and taser and handcuff a young woman and take her off the premises because she refused to wear a mask in America. Tasered and handcuffed and led off the premises of a middle school football game. And John Scott is interviewing Scott Atlas about the entire situation. Tanner, can we play Scott Atlas? And I'm going to kind of talk through this because I want to explain it, and then I want to explain at the end how this whole thing gets sewn up at the very end in the coordination between Fox News and its corporate sponsors. Tanner, go.
I think it's an illustration. The country's off the rails here, and we have to have common sense policy. So first of all, the president's policy is a common sense policy. I've said it many times. He's said it many times. He recommends wearing a mask if you cannot socially distance, particularly if you're around high risk.
He recommends, not mandates. He recommends that you wear a mask if you are around somebody who is who you could put in danger. We know who these people are now. This is a virus that attacks primarily people over the age of 70 who have weakened immune systems to begin with. My father, for example, hits the gym every day since I was able to remember him as an adult. My dad goes to the gym and works his tail off for an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours every single solitary day of his life. I don't think he's got too terribly much to be worried about with the coronavirus, although I hope he is cautious. But if you are 75 and you are healthy and you are working your tail off to remain healthy, you're eating right, you don't see too many of those people in the emergency room at the local hospitals. What you see is people that are very ill, weakened immune system, heart problems, hypertension, something of that nature. Those are the people that are in trouble. So if you're going to be around somebody in a close quarters with them for a long period of time, you might want to toss on a mask. That makes common sense because you're dealing with a sick person in an age where they have something to be worried about if they have comorbidities and they have to be in close contact with somebody who might be ill. So Donald Trump's plan has always been not by mandate, by suggestion, but not by mandate. Tanner, go.
people or if you are high risk. But when you have an irrational policy like mandating everyone wear a mask everywhere you go outside, then you also have to think through, what are you going to do if people don't? And here we have an example. We are turning into a country that is really has people in power making these sorts of mandates that are irrational. They are not with the science.
Not with the science.
What are they going to do? The president is not for arresting people. He's not for mandating things like this, and he's certainly not for tasing people. I think Americans are going to have to end up standing up for themselves and realizing this.
And how many times have we said it on this broadcast? One of the main reasons I wanted to do this was because I keep telling Americans, this is a big system we're up against. It is organized. It has an incredible ability to message. It is in line with the political establishment. They own all of the outlets from where you get your information. And if you believe them, great. You're living in a false reality is all I can tell you. It's very, very obvious that they will preach to you whatever they want to preach, and they will manipulate you for whatever reasons they want. But you have to stand up for yourself. If you're in a state that mandates masks and you're walking around in compliance because you think you're being a good person, you're not. Doesn't mean you can't go into a store that mandates a mask and put the mask on. I get it. I prefer not to shop there if there's an alternative. But nonetheless, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to protest. You cannot fall in line with BS forever, because you're going to wake up and you're going to be conditioned into the BS. And that's when the game starts to change. So, as Scott Atlas said, Americans will have to stand up for themselves. Tanner, please.
Out of control already.
She was sitting there with her mother. It wasn't as though she were, on a bleacher seat surrounded by other people. They were, as far as I can tell, completely alone and sitting together and didn't have masks on.
But they weren't complying.
But let me ask you this. The president tweeted out a picture of the crowds at one of his Florida rallies. Obviously, those rallies are drawing huge numbers of people. The governor of Pennsylvania doesn't much seem to like that.
Pause, please. Governor of Pennsylvania, who was just admonished by the Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania, saying that lockdowns were unconstitutional. And he appealed immediately because he wants to lock it down, because he knows Pennsylvania, just like Michigan, are swing states. And if Donald Trump doesn't win one or the other or both, odds of him being president of the United States go down very quickly. So you've got Pennsylvania, which is this wolf character. He is the governor of Pennsylvania. Megan Whitmer, I believe is her name, or Gretchen Whitmer, is the Michigan governor. And they want lockdown, baby. And they want lockdown until the election. And if Joe Biden wins the election, you can imagine those lockdowns are going to go bye-bye real quick. Can't say enough about the masks. They may keep those on, because I think they're half evil, to be honest with you, most of them. But nonetheless, that is the plan. You will be miserable in a Democrat state that is needed for to win the election for Joe Biden. You're going to be miserable until November 3rd. Those are the people that you may be voting for, are these folks. Tanner, go.
He said, it is gravely concerning that the president would insist on holding this event, meaning a rally he has planned for Pennsylvania, with blatant disregard for social distancing and masking requirements. His decision to bring thousands of people together in a tight space in the middle of a global pandemic caused by an airborne virus is flat out wrong. What do you say to the governor about that? Is he right?
No, he's not right, because the president is actually assuming people are adults and have the ability to make decisions about what they want to do. He issued the guideline. Everyone understands the basic premise that if you're close to somebody, it's recommended you wear a mask. But again, that's very different from requiring people to wear a mask, from arresting people that aren't wearing masks, from tasing people. I mean, this is not China here. Okay, we are mature people.
Oh, but they want it to be China.
Decisions based upon recommendations. And it's just like, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's un-American to start doing this kind of thing. And it is scientifically irrational.
I would just point out that
please.
According to a Brown University,
here we come. So here is, now you got to remember how corporate structure works. And this is one thing I wanted to get to. This is one of the reasons I wanted to play the clip. So at the very end of this, you're going to hear John Scott. He's got a earpiece in. Can't see it. but if you've worked in media, you kind of understand how this works. He's got an earpiece in, and he's got a producer telling him what he needs to say in response to Scott Atlas. And you got to remember, Fox News is the mask capital of the media. They want you in those masks desperately. Desperately, Fox News wants you in those masks. And you'd have to ask why, and I'll kind of get to that after this clip. But this is what John Scott says as he ends the clip with Scott Atlas. Go.
Study as kids are getting back to school. COVID cases have afflicted about 1 in 400 students and about 1 in 200 teachers. Dr. Scott Atlas, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your expertise.
And Scott Atlas kind of has a look on his face. You can't see it, but it was on television. He has a look on his face like, I get it, at the very end. Scott Atlas is hip to it, which makes me think that Donald Trump is hip to it. That's why I can't figure out why we keep playing this game as long as we are. But nonetheless, I think maybe it's Donald Trump has turned a little bit politician here. He wants to play the middle on this thing. But nonetheless, he'll get my vote just simply for not mandating anything, because mandates are very, very dangerous to a free society. And then I wanted to get into the corporate structure and as to why, one of the many reasons that Fox News would be so hell-bent on making sure that you freak out from coronavirus, COVID-19. And then you go to their sponsorships and you look on it, and one of their biggest, if not the biggest sponsor they have is Procter & Gamble, right? So you go to Procter & Gamble. I just said, okay, let me look up Procter & Gamble. This is the first thing I saw on Procter & Gamble. It was a tweet on 9/21/20 from their chairman and CEO, a guy named David Taylor. And this is the first thing it says. The science is clear. Nature is everyone's business, and the next 10 years are critical. David S. Taylor, chairman, president, and CEO. And what he's trying to get at is climate change. These are climate change people. They're all in the same schemes together, whether it be climate change, whether it be COVID-19. These are money-making vehicles for the networks. The second largest contributor to Fox News is Amazon. Do you think Amazon has a vested interest in COVID-19 and the lockdowns that ensued? Do you think their business is doing well since everybody can't shop in stores anymore, can't go to the malls, can't really get out anywhere and shop freely and comfortably? Amazon loves the lockdowns, as you might expect. And the third largest contributor is Heinz. Well, who's Heinz, you might ask? Well, that's John Kerry's family. Do you think they have a vested interest in Donald Trump being smeared with COVID-19? It's his fault for every death, and you're going to have to wear a mask and be locked down until the election? You're damn right they do. Then you got Pfizer, Big Pharma. If you look at the commercials on Fox News, primarily all you're going to see is commercials for Big Pharma, older people and ailments they may have, and all the medicines they can take to feel better. Not that exercise or sunshine would do any good for you. They're never promoting exercise and sunshine, but if you got a pill that you can take to magically make your body better, they've got it for you, and they're selling it to you on Fox News. If you pee too much in the middle of the night, they got a pill for that, right? If your muscles ache, they got a pill for that. Anything that you can think of that's not dead set perfect, Pfizer's got a pill for you, and they're going to sell it to you on Fox News. General Motors, another key contributor and another sponsor of Fox News. And why would General Motors be so interested in the lockdown and COVID-19? Because they are attached to the Democrat Party from a union standpoint. The unions are pro-Democrat. I don't know if you've heard yet, but that is the case. And then Novartis, that was the next one. I really don't know much about Novartis, but I just went to their Twitter page, and the first thing I see on Novartis, and I'll read just a clip that was released on 8/26/20 on Twitter from a guy named Vas Narasimhan. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time and will greatly impact human health. To help build a healthier, more sustainable future for our planet and for humanity, Novartis maintains our deep commitment to combating climate change. Those are the 5 or 6 or 7 of the top sponsors for the corporate news media and Fox News. So if it doesn't start to make sense as to how this thing ties together, I get in so many different conversations with people, and they just cannot believe that there's so many different hands in the pot. There's so many different angles to this thing. They're like, I hear it from Hollywood. I hear it from the press. I hear it from the Democrat establishment. I hear it from the global bodies. Well, when you got 30 or 40 years to buy your way in and start to manipulate people and make money off them, you got a nice system in place. And that's what's been going on. That's what's been going on. And as I've said many, many times, in fact, I said it in, in episode 4, that they were, the idea was to change history. If you remember, America, the idea was to break away from a global structure. That was the entire, that's why America is so special. We had a global structure. We had global tyranny around the entire world, and the people of the United States, the people of America, broke free and started a whole new concept where every person born is created equal. That was the premise, and it took 100 years to make everybody free, and a little bit more to that, and a little bit more than that, to get women the right to vote. There was a lot of cultural issues at play, but nonetheless, the premise, the idea of America won the day. And we're about as free, and we have made many portions of the world just as free as we are. But the big money is back in play. The billionaires are back in play, and they want their power and control back, and they don't want you messing with it, and they don't want to share the pie with you. Period. They don't want to do it. And what's the other big news? Just recently, Donald Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court of the United States, and that was big news for a lot of reasons. May God rest the soul of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I will just say in this particular instance, it could not have come at a better time to have a Supreme Court that might lean in the direction of the originalist idea of the Constitution, meaning we don't make up the rules as we go. The Constitution gave us a guideline, and we are supposed to adhere to the guidelines of that Constitution, and that is the idea behind the thoughts and the rulings and the judgment of Amy Coney Barrett. And if people did not get to see the news conference, they gave a little bit of her resume. She has 7 children. She was the #1 law student at Notre Dame. She worked for Justice Scalia. Her law professor, when giving a recommendation for her, said that Amy Coney Barrett was the best student he had ever had in his career. But I can guarantee you that's not how it's going to go down when we go through this confirmation process. You can already start to see where they're starting to take their swipes at her. They're going to try to destroy Amy Coney Barrett as fast as they can, just like they did to Judge Bork in the 80s, just like they did to Judge Thomas. If you remember that with Anita Hill, that was one of the first things that got me into politics. I remember being in Chicago at the time, and Judge Clarence Thomas was up for his nomination. I was rooting for him. I think most people through the 80s and 90s were rooting for the conservatives, especially black conservatives, if you're on our political bent, to be on the Supreme Court. We thought it was a great thing, and boy, did they try to tear him down. And here we are almost 30 years later, and he's done just fine. He's not a sexual predator like they tried to make him out to be, nor will Kavanaugh, who in the 19 or 18, he went through his nomination process and confirmation process. We got to watch that go down. Was that just the most sickening thing you'd ever want to see in your life with that Blasey Ford character? And that's another thing that just, before I go too far, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but anybody that watched the Kavanaugh hearings that couldn't recognize that she was full of BS just doesn't know the backstory of everything. She was courted by somebody within the FBI. They trained her as what to say. She lied multiple times, just said she didn't know. So it's really not a lie. It's a lie by omission. But if you were following the case behind the scenes and knew what was going on, that woman lied so many times and gave so many distortions and acted like she didn't know things that were common knowledge within the press, and certainly things that she knew, that you could deem her full of BS quite quickly, with the mousy voice, and she doesn't know what party she was at. She doesn't know exactly who was there, and she doesn't know anything about anything, but she's besmirching the reputation of a man with young girls at home, with a wife that he has been loyal to, with a sterling career on the courts, coached girls basketball, by all intents and purposes, a great man. He had almost 100 women who had worked with and for him hold a press conference to talk about what a genuine, decent man he was. And here we are with the Judicial Committee raking him over the coals, turning him into a gang rapist. I just don't know how people vote for that side of the fence. I don't get it. If they can do that to Kavanaugh, if they can do it to Trump, if they can do it to Flynn, they damn as well sure can do it to you. And they plan to. Get in their way, and you're going to be the one on the cross, as they say. But here's what the New York Times is doing to her. The New York Times is saying that her Catholic religion is not is not kosher with the American idea, whatever that means. So that's what the New York Times is out, and that's what their paper is saying about Amy Coney Barrett. I thought we were done with that with John F. Kennedy, but apparently not. I guess here we are 50, 60 years later, and we're back at it again, apparently. They're also attacking her. If you look through the internet and a lot of the Twitter feeds starting to gain power, a lot of these people on Twitter, they're attacking her for adopting 2 Haitian children, which have been with her for a while, and you can see them in the audience, seem to be very happy, smiling, well-adjusted children. She has a beautiful family. Not one reason in the world to destroy her. If you want to go at her for her legal opinions, that's what the confirmation process is all about. But the continual destruction of somebody's reputation on fake, phony, mob mentality information is just sickening, and it must stop in this country because it should no longer be accepted by either side of the aisle. And if you remember, as we go through this process, because there's a lot of debate because the Senate, when Barack Obama nominated Judge Garland after Justice Scalia died, they nominated this Judge Garland, and the Senate would not take it up. Mitch McConnell would not take it up in the last year of Obama's presidency, and now that is being judged hypocritical by everybody on the Democrat side and the media. How could you do this? How could you do that? And I just wonder how many people know the backdrop to the story. So 29 times a justice has been replaced in the final year of someone's term, a presidential term. And of those 29 times, if the president had the Senate, so if the president had the Senate, that happened 19 times, 17 times that person was confirmed. So whoever the president nominated, if they had control of the Senate at the time of the nomination, 17 of the 19 times that judge was confirmed. On the other hand, there have been 10 times, just like Obama, where the president nominated somebody, which he or her, constitutionally obligated to do. That's happened 10 times, and only 2 were confirmed. So you can kind of see where the precedence is at. The precedence is, and that's why so many people voted for Trump in the Senate. He picked up 2 seats in 2018. I happened to go to a fundraiser, a GOP fundraiser in 2018 to support Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, who I think is absolutely fantastic. I have made mention many, many times. I think he is the most competent, the most brilliant, and the best senator in D.C. at the moment. Was not on board with him at the very beginning, got to hear him speak, have watched him very closely since he ran for Senate, and he is doing a fantastic job. He is a very, very bright person, and I'm so glad that I went to that fundraiser because I got to meet him, got to talk to him a little bit, got to understand his point of view on things. And what he went on stage in that particular fundraiser and spoke to a very small audience about was the Supreme Court and how important it was for voters to pick the right senators so that they could get control of the Senate, so they could get judges confirmed on the Supreme Court of the United States. That's what Hawley was speaking to in his audience, and he had beside him Lindsey Graham, who I'm not a big fan of, but Lindsey Graham was there because he had made his bones earlier in that confirmation with Kavanaugh, where he said, "Boy, you sure all want some power. I hope you never get it," meaning they would do anything to get power, as he was speaking to the Democrat side of the Judicial Committee in the confirmation process for Kavanaugh. Cory Gardner was there, a Colorado senator, and Roy Blunt, a Missouri senator, were all there. And every single one of them got up and they spoke about the importance of getting Josh Hawley and all senators running in that particular term, 2018, for one reason. It's the only thing they talked about was getting control of the Senate so that they could get judges to the Supreme Court confirmed. So Trump voters went out. They got him a majority of 53 to 47 in the Senate. And here we are with Amy Coney Barrett, and she is going to play an enormous role in the entire situation because, as I've said on multiple occasions, this thing is most likely heading to the Supreme Court. So for my Democrat friends who think that it's perfectly normal to have mail-in ballots, to a degree, you're right. The problem is the rules within each state are ridiculous. Some of them are verified. Down here in Florida, they're verified. In many, many states where there are Oregon, apparently they're verified. But there's a lot of these places where you send a mail-in ballot. You have to, the signature has to be verified. There has to be a witness to it. So there are things that go on within the mail-in ballot system that make it workable. And there are things that are just begging for corruption and begging for the courts to have to make a decision. And with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as far as I'm concerned, the left, the Democrats, had a 5-4 majority. Because no matter what you say about Justice Roberts on every key decision that he's had to make has voted with the Democrats. And Amy Coney Barrett has called him out big time on the ACA. Because if you remember in the ACA, and I don't know how many people remember, but I'll try to get you to remember just a little bit here. The Barack Obama administration, when they were fighting for the ACA and making their public cry for the ACA, they told the American people on 1,000, and I think let me look at the exact number. It was 475,215 times. They said that the ACA was not a tax. It was not a tax. It was not a tax. That's what they said. That's what all the representatives said. That's what all the senators, all the Congress people. Claire McCaskill was my senator in Missouri at the time, and I was ringing her phone off, sending her email after email after email saying, how are you telling me this is not a tax? If you take it from me, and I don't want to give it to you, and I don't get anything in return, that's a tax, no matter how you slice it. And sending her emails that the great Claire McCaskill felt no reason to respond to because she's just my senator, but she never, ever once replied to anything. No phone calls, no emails, no nothing. But when the Barack Obama administration fought the ACA in front of the Supreme Court, they argued that it was a tax. So that's how that rolls. They sell you on it's not a tax, and they go out for months and tell you it's not a tax. And then when they get in front of the Supreme Court and they need to make sure that baby sticks, they tell you or tell the Supreme Court of the United States that it is a tax. And nobody seems to care. I guess they can just lie to you as much as they want. So long as they get what they want, they can lie and say and do whatever they want. But Amy Coney Barrett called out Judge Roberts and said that he basically had twist logic into a pretzel to make sure that the ACA stood up when it was fought in the Supreme Court. So I'm very glad that she is on the court. I'm very excited about it. I know a lot of people are concerned about abortion rights. I try not to get into where I'm at as far as issues are concerned, but I'll tell you this. That's a debate that needs to be had because you have 45 to 55% of the country, primarily women, if you can believe it, who are more against abortion rights the way we have them today than men. The fact that you can have an abortion up until the 9th month for any parent seems very gruesome, seems very illogical. And if it happens and they go, oh, it's so rare, it's so rare. Well, let's just say that you're stabbing a knife through the head of 25 9 months in the womb babies. Is that too many? What's the number that's too many, in your opinion, for that to be cool, for that to be okay? Not okay with me. I don't like it. I don't think it's good for society, and I don't think that it should be endorsed, nor do I think it should be financed by the American people. I think it is a horrid, disgusting practice, and I think it should be eliminated quickly. And most people I talk to have the same version, same thought process on abortion. When it's a baby in the room, it's got a heartbeat or whatever you want to, whatever determines there is a person inside that womb, that's the end. No more abortions from that point forward. I think that's a fair compromise for the people who love abortion. And there's lots of you. I don't get it, but there's lots of you. right? So I think that is a fair and just way to look at it. So what's next is the debates. I made a prediction that I didn't think Joe Biden would show up for the debates, at least until now. The debates are tomorrow. So Donald Trump will be debating Joe Biden tomorrow. I am fascinated that anybody would put Joe Biden in front of Donald Trump. I think it is going to be a massacre unlike anything anybody has ever seen, unless the moderator, which is Chris Wallace, he's a Democrat from Fox News, unless he shades it so much that it becomes obvious that he is, which I think will backfire on him as well. I think this is going to be an absolute embarrassment to the country. I think it's embarrassing that anybody would put Joe Biden in front of the American people and let him debate somebody as shrewd and as wise and as cunning as Donald Trump. I think it is unfair to those with dementia, which Joe Biden clearly has. He would not today. My son was telling me earlier that he would not agree to doing a drug test prior to the debate. Why, I don't know. If you're the president of the United States or want to be the president of the United States, can we at least find out what drugs you're on? Because Joe Biden has no business being the president of the United States. I want to know that he's up there with a clear mind before he debates, but he will not take any drug testing as asked for by the Trump administration. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think when Biden was all together, he could debate Donald Trump because he's got too many skeletons in his closet to count, and Donald Trump had better bring them to light in this debate tomorrow, supposing that it happens. Tanner, can we get the clips ready of Donald Trump? If you're not paying attention, because the media won't show it to you and you got to find it on social media, Donald Trump gave a press conference yesterday. And for as long as I can remember, we have been saying that Donald Trump has to get out in front of the American people. He cannot rely on press conferences on the weekend and at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to get his point across. He needs to get in front of the press, prime time, and start spelling out things that the Biden administration have done. He has to start spelling out all of the things the FBI and the CIA did to spy on his campaign, and he can no longer worry about how it gets done in court. We're past that point. We're at the point now where we have to pick the leader for the next 4 years, the direction of the entire country, and quite honestly, the direction of the entire world. And Donald Trump has to get out there and spell that out and put the pressure on the other team to start explaining themselves. He must do that. He's got to explain, the ballots need to be explained. Why are we doing the ballots in the form that we're doing? He needs to go what the regulations and the rules are by state, because he's definitely calling them out as far as the corruption that's going to go on in this election. I mean, you can kind of see that coming. This is going to be a long election, barring a miracle. But nonetheless, this was his press conference yesterday. He starts to spell it out, and he goes through multiple different things that he wants the media, just as John Kennedy did. He's going to the media saying, please report on the things that matter. But they're not going to. They're going to talk about his taxes and whatever else they can drum up before the election. But they're not going to talk about anything that affects me and you. They're just going to attack Donald Trump because that's the only card they've got to play. Tanner, press conference from September 27th yesterday. Trump, clip one, please.
Do something on CNN about it because it's the biggest single scandal of our time, certainly the biggest political scandal perhaps in history. They spied on our campaign, and then they tried for a coup. That didn't work out too well. And it turned out that you read the text that came out over the last 3 days. It turned out that it was reversed. It was the DNC and the Democrats that were using Russia. And related or unrelated, Hunter Biden got $3.5 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow. Why did he get $3.5 million? And then he got millions more than we thought from Ukraine, and he got millions more than we heard about from China. Hunter Biden.
So why aren't we finding that out? Aren't you Democrat voters just a little bit? Let's say it's all lies. Let's say that everything that Donald Trump just said there is completely made up, not an ounce of truth to it, right? Why in the world is it not being asked? Why aren't they beating on the door of Joe Biden and saying, why is your son involved in Ukraine? Why is he involved in Burisma, which was labeled a corrupt energy company from every from the U.S. State Department? Really? Why was your son getting $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow, and then in turn, your father was pointing the finger at Donald Trump for being a Russian spy. How do we square that? Can't we at least ask the question and get to the bottom of it? Where's the media? They're nowhere to be found. Same thing with Ukraine. What we're starting to find out, which we already knew, but it was starting to come to light, is everything that Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Dianne Feinstein and Adam Schiff and all these cast of characters blame on Donald Trump is simply to smear Donald Trump for the same things that they were actually doing. And I think most of the people on the Trump side are already hip to it. We already know it. We've already proven it to ourselves. We've already seen it. If you've ever read the book Rules for Radicals, it talks about just strategies, Marxist strategies. You blame your opponent for the same things that you're doing. It's just a political tactic. And you wondered why they were pushing all these schemes so hard with Ukraine. My favorite's Ukraine because they basically tried to impeach Donald Trump for Ukraine. And then you can go on YouTube right now and watch Joe Biden threaten to withhold $1 billion worth of taxpayer money from the Ukrainian government if they didn't fire the prosecutor who was investigating his son. And you can look at it yourself. You don't even need you don't need the press to tell you. You just go on YouTube and say Ukraine Biden and you can watch it. And we're still arguing that. And nobody on the Democrat side seems to care. I mean, you can't find one person that, because I don't dislike Democrat voters. I really don't. I was a Democrat voter. What I don't understand is the all the finger pointing and all the accusations that you make against Trump. And I say, well, what about this? And you just go on to the next thing like it never happened when I can show it to you. You can watch it. But nobody seems to care. And it moves on and on and on. Clip 2, Tanner, from the Trump press conference yesterday, because the next thing, and we have talked about this on multiple times in the first 9 episodes that we did, that we are staring the face of communism right in the eye. It's basically communism. It's authoritarian capitalism, which means that the people in power manipulate the game so they take all the money and you basically work for them. You're not working in a free and open society. You're working in a global scheme that keeps the billionaires richer and more powerful, and you have no real room to move forward. You're going to hit the middle class if you're lucky, but the bottom line is there is no real freedom in your life. It is only the appearance of freedom, and Donald Trump touched on that yesterday. Tanner, clip 2, please.
Democrats are desperate to distract from the real issues, which is that their party has been taken over by socialists, extremists, and probably communists. I think it's beyond socialism. I think it's a step beyond and could be many steps beyond if you take a look.
So he's finally starting to say it. I don't know what's taken so long. I mean, it's been communism, and we've been staring at it and talking about it for, a couple, 3 years now. You can kind of see where everything's lining up. You know what we're getting into and why that has not been, why we waited until 36 days before the election to make mention of it. To be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated with. I think we should have been talking about it for the last 2 years on a continual basis, explain to people what was going on, explain the tactics, and let people judge for themselves. But instead, it's, the media is not going to report on Donald Trump fairly. So if you've turned Donald Trump off because you don't like his hairdo, you don't like the things he says about the people you seem to love, then you've turned him off and you're not hearing anything. And that is not a recipe for success. What should be going on is Donald Trump right now, today, should be giving press conferences in prime time, just like the fireside chats under FDR, and he should be explaining to the country what we're up against, because this is a very, very, very serious situation that the country finds itself in. I'm in a much better mood today because of Amy Coney Barrett, because Florida is free once more, and I get to live in a free state. It's very nice. I enjoy it. I like it. But he should be out there making the case for what he's for versus what the other side is for. And all you need to know is Joe Biden wants you to wear a mask by mandate. I mean, that's as simple as that. Donald Trump wants you to be free and have your choice. Joe Biden immediately in his first press conference with Kamala Harris says, I would mandate masks across the board if I were the president of the United States. He's telling you that that's the way he wants to do it. So if you get into a situation like that, every scheme, every bunch of nonsense that the government puts out in front of you, the schools start to teach it to you. It's endorsed by the media. All of a sudden, you're in a situation where they are convincing people to do things that are against their better interest, because there is no way in the world that mandated masks for every man, woman, and child across this country is good for America. It just simply is not. And I think everybody should understand that at some level. Good Lord. Clip 3, Tanner. This is the next one is about the ballots. Because I think if Joe Biden debates tomorrow, I'll come back and say I was wrong. I will. I'll admit when I'm wrong. That's the one prediction of the 9 episodes that I may get wrong. We're going to see if he shows up tomorrow, or if he magically has COVID or something crazy happens between now and tomorrow. But if he shows up, what that tells me is they have no desire to win the election. They don't have any desire to win the election, because I am traveling this entire country still to this day, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is 10 times more support for Donald Trump today than there was when he was elected in 2016. You can travel this country from New York to California, and I'm telling you what, especially in New York, California, Illinois, 3 of the biggest states that heavily go Democrat, those people are sick and tired of being locked in their homes and watching their friends' businesses fall apart. They're tired of it, and they want it changed lickety-split, and they know which side of the fence wants lockdowns and masks. They get it. They understand it. So there is more support for Donald Trump right now than there has ever been. I'd like to see Donald Trump make the case a little bit better than he has. He's got a little bit more time to do it. But up until this point, he's really preaching to the choir. He needs to preach to those people in the middle from now until Election Day. But the ballots, that's if he debates, they have no intention on winning. What they have the intention on doing is smearing the election. And you can call it stealing if you'd like, but basically what they're going to do is smear it. They're going to have ballots come in after Election Day. They're going to come up with all kinds of different reasoning for saying it was fixed here and it didn't work here, and on. It's going to get into a legal battle, which is eventually going to make itself to the Supreme Court of the United States. They only have to really spread this thing out from November 3rd till January 20th, and they're going to try and keep that baby locked up, tied up as long as they possibly can, because if they let Joe Biden, who cannot think straight for more than 2 minutes, can't do it, won't do it. It is not even, I don't care how much medicine they pour into him. If Donald Trump starts pressing him and Chris Wallace starts pressing him, he will crumble. There's just no other way around it. He can't even answer the easiest of questions. So you can imagine what it's going to be like when Donald Trump starts attacking him for all the things that he's done in his lifetime of being a criminal up in the Senate. Clip 3, ballots. Tanner, go.
We have a big problem, and you see it every day. You see it happening every day with ballots. We are gravely concerned about the Democrat assault on election integrity. In Brooklyn, 25% of mail-in ballots were ruled invalid in June's Democrat primary. You saw that. And a special election in New Jersey, 20% of the ballots were thrown out, and 4 people are now being prosecuted for fraud.
Tanner. That's good. So the point he's trying to make, and he goes through multiple different states and all the different fraudulent election ballots with the mail-in schemes that they have got going on, and he is making the case that we should have a very uniform and understandable election process. We can put a vehicle on Mars. We can put a man on the moon. We can make electric cars, right? We've got a lot of technology and a lot of ways to verify things, but for some reason, the political class doesn't want to verify elections, and I wonder why. I wonder why we can't do that. Of all the things we can do, we cannot confirm that an election has taken place properly, when all you really need to do is get out a voter ID card to everybody who is on the voter rolls. If they want if they can't make it to the polls because they're scared of COVID, or they can't walk, or they can't see, or they're too disabled to get to the ballot box, then they got to get a absentee ballot, which they fill out. They have to request it, so there is a chain of custody on it, a witness, and then everybody else goes to the polls. They have the voter registration there. You show your ID, you prove who you are, you vote. We tally them up with multiple different people protecting the integrity of the election, and then we add them all up and we find out who won. It can't be that hard. I think we could probably figure, if you gave me and 4 of my good friends a weekend, we could figure out how to make an election process streamlined in the United States. But for some reason, we can't do it here in America. I just can't figure out why. I wonder why we can't make that happen. But apparently we can't. So this is going to get nasty come election time, because it's going to be smeared every which way they can smear it and make you confused. So last thing I wanted to cover is some of these endorsements. And I just happened to be watching one this morning. I don't know how many people saw it, but as we know, if you're going to have a career in Hollywood, you better be either quiet or endorsing Joe Biden. But one guy that I liked endorsed Joe Biden either yesterday or just recently is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And I'm a little bit bummed out about it because I thought he had a slight bit of integrity, but this guy's trying to make his bones. He's trying to become an even bigger movie star. He's got a gazillion people on Twitter and Instagram that follow this guy. But I just thought it was interesting because he is outside with muscles bulging to the point of insanity. I mean, it doesn't even look, he looks like a cartoon character as he's giving this endorsement for Joe and Kamala and Biden. And he gives the endorsement outside, not wearing a mask. When the Biden administration or the Biden campaign, that's the first thing they want to do is make him wear a mask outside. But when he gives this endorsement, he is maskless outside. I just find that to be very interesting and typically hypocritical of all these people, because there's no way that Dwayne the Rockhead Johnson thinks that Joe Biden could possibly be a worthy president. Nobody who's thinking clearly thinks that Joe Biden is going to run this country. This is a very complicated world that we're in. And for the first time in my lifetime, we haven't started any wars under this president. Remember, he's going to start a world war with Russia. It was going to be a world war with North Korea. He was going to start a world war with everybody. Well, you know what? We didn't expand any wars. We're trying to bring our people home. We aren't starting any wars. That used to be something the Democrats could get behind, but not anymore. Not anymore. Now we want to start wars. And I guarantee you that if the good Joe Biden gets in office, there will be a war. You can bet on it. A lot of money to be made in wars, and Joe Biden knows how to make some money because his brother made a shit ton in Iraq. Made a ton of money in Iraq. His son in Ukraine and China and Russia, they're all making money with these coordinated schemes that they got going on. So you can bet that we're going back to war if Lord Joe Biden gets in office. So that's pretty much it. I just want to go with one last thing before we end episode 10. First of all, I want to thank everybody for listening. It has been quite a ride for me again. It was exciting. We're going to keep rolling forward with it. We're just trying to figure out how on episode 11, 11 through 20, and apparently from what I understand from these media companies, in order to get, I believe, syndication, you have to do 23 to 24 episodes before being considered for that. So I'm not sure whether I want to do that or not, whether we're just going to take it to a website. We're just, my family and I, along with several people, are trying to figure out where to go after this 10. But I know 11 through 20, we want to do call-in shows. I want to debate with all of those who disagree with me, hear from people that agree with me, maybe get some new insights into things that maybe I didn't think of. But as you, for all of you who have listened from episode 1, just want to give you a quick rundown before we close the show of the first 9 and now 10 episodes and what we are trying to get across to everyone. And in episode 1, I started with, just telling a little bit about myself. I am a news fanatic, and I know a lot of people think they're news fanatics, but if anybody's paying attention to what's going on in the world more than me, I haven't met them yet. And that goes for everybody on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, the Washington Times, the New York Times. I don't care who it is. I pay attention to what everybody says on Twitter, who's in the know. I pay attention to the websites. I pay attention to the network news. I pay attention to all the newspapers. I pay attention to all the politicians. It is an absolute obsession with me, or a commitment, whichever way you want to look at it. But that's my deal. That's what I like to do. So I'm paying attention to it morning, noon, and night. And what I was trying to get across to everyone was the media was lying to them. They had created a false reality. They had endorsed it with our education system. They had endorsed it with the media. They had endorsed it with pop culture. If you look at the Major League Baseball, if you look at the NFL and the NBA, I mean, it is basically they've turned into political organizations. I mean, I'm watching the NBA the other night just because I'm rooting for anybody to beat LeBron James. Because as you remember, the great LeBron James, what was the famous quote, Tanner? Those people that voted for Donald Trump, they wasn't educated, which I think is one of the greatest quotes of all time. But nonetheless, the famous quote from LeBron James, I root for him to lose at everything. If he's playing chess, I want to know about it. I want him to lose. I don't think he's probably playing chess, but if he were, I'd be rooting for him to lose. So I'm watching it the other night, rooting against him hard. He won. He is a tremendous basketball player nonetheless, but he won. But as they're coming out, everybody's either got a Black Lives Matter shirt on, a vote shirt on. The entire production is about politics. I mean, it's almost like the basketball is secondary to the political commentary, but that's the way that works. Episode 1, we talked about John Kennedy giving a speech to the press club in which he outlined a global power structure that had diplomatic, scientific, military operations, and he called it a global conspiracy. That was John Kennedy, John F. Kennedy. That's not my words. That's John Kennedy. And he gave that speech to the press club, and it was suppressed from the American public until Donald Trump became president. And it was released on October 28th, 2017. You can go on YouTube right now and listen to John F. Kennedy's speech to the press club, where he basically encourages the press to start reporting on things that matter and stop protecting the people in power around the world that had their fingers in the American system. Episode 2, we talked about the black vote. I am very, very encouraged with what's going on within the black community. I think they are figuring it out really quick. I am one of those people that does not mind being beat up on from my black friends, black family members. I don't care one bit. I believe in my heart and soul that you're getting sold a bill of goods, and I will stand up for what I believe in. And you just have to know that I think that I'm on your side. I think that you've gotten the short end of the stick. I think you've been lied to in many, many different ways and suppressed, and I want it fixed, but not by the people you want to fix it. Those are the same people that got you in the position that you don't like to begin with. Episode 3, we went through COVID and the plan with COVID and the data manipulation and how the entire movie was rolled out. This was a scheme. This was a coordinated scheme. Came out of China, went through Italy, made its way into the United States, and then the data manipulation started. And they can, if they wanted to convince you that 4 million people were killed, they could do it. And all they got to do is have their press and their academia and everybody endorse the same messaging, and it would be true in your mind, because how would you know any different is basically how it works. So data manipulation and the rollout of COVID was the 3rd episode. Episode 4, we talked about America and the idea of America and the war that we fought in 1776 to break away from England and the global structure. If you look at what was going on in those times, there was a global, not a global conspiracy, but a global power structure. They had the money. They could do just about whatever they wanted, and the American people said enough and created a revolution that changed the world forever. And that is when Donald Trump gave the speech that all are paraphrasing, that all men are created equal in the Constitution, and started to explain how that changed the world forever. Episode 5, we talked about the global power structure trying to regain the power that they had lost. They've been trying to get it ever since. It's not as though this money and these operations and these families go away. Just because Nazism gets destroyed doesn't mean Nazism goes away. Just because fascism gets destroyed doesn't mean it goes away. Just because Marxism is destroyed, or you think it's destroyed, doesn't mean it goes away. These big, powerful families live in a world that you and I don't understand. They have great power and influence. They buy entire countries. They buy politicians. They buy corporations. They do what they need to do to stay in power, and they want their power back, and they've got the entire world lined up, except for Donald Trump. At least it appears they've got the entire world lined up, except for Donald Trump. Episode 6, we talked about the pedophilia. There was a lot of interest in what was going on with sex trafficking, child trafficking. As we've said many, many times, that southern border wall had multiple purposes. And Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George Bush, Hillary Clinton, all of them talked about building a southern border wall, and none of them did it, oddly enough. The entire country wanted it done, and all of the politicians told us they were going to get it done when they were running for president, or even after they'd become president, but it never got done, and I wonder why it never got done. But the sex trafficking, if you just want to look it up, you can look it up on Google, or as I prefer, DuckDuckGo, because that's better than Google. But if you want to look it up, it'll talk about all of the sex trafficking and child trafficking arrests over the course of the last 4 years. The numbers have skyrocketed since Donald Trump has been president of the United States. So you just got to remember the billionaire class, they've got all kinds of different ways of raising money. So does the political class. And when those two are in line with one another, bad things happen. Episode 7, that's when Davos got very brave and started to outline the scheme with COVID-19. They called it a global reset, and all of the things they were going to bring in with COVID-19, vaccinations, global tracking, these trackers that they put on your phone, energy and changing the energy policies, financial policies, digital money, all kinds of different things they wanted to bring in with COVID-19. And if you think that's circumstance, I got a bridge to sell you. Episode 8, we talked about the DNC and all of the crazy things that have happened around the DNC that just goes through the news and nobody really seems to get an answer to. Nobody seems to care. But as I said in episode 8, there were 4 people that were that could cause a lot of problem for the DNC. All died within a 6-week time frame, and you barely even heard a word about it. It just went straight through. Nobody seemed to pay attention because nobody seems to pay attention, just like John F. Kennedy warned in the speech from episode 1. All that stuff gets brushed under the rug. We never talk about it, and then it just moves on down the road, and nothing ever happens. But 4 very key people that had a lot of problems with the DNC died in a 6-week period, all under mysterious circumstances, and none of it ever solved. And then episode 9, I talked about my experience in supporting Donald Trump, all of the intimidation that went on with me, all of the problems I had in my own personal life with friends and family, all jumping on the bandwagon and calling me racist and sexist and you name it, everything they could call you to try and take you off of the Donald Trump train. They used it against me, but it did not stop. It did not stop me. I kept rolling forward. Here I am today. I'm still supporting Donald Trump. I'm not happy with everything that he does, but I don't think that anybody on planet Earth could do everything that I wanted them to do because I don't understand all of the circumstances that these people are under. But I do know one thing. The people that I don't like hate Donald Trump. That's one thing I recognize. All the people that have been lying to me, all the people that have been conning and stealing and doing those types of things, they are all lined up against Donald Trump. All of them, every single solitary one of them from every field, they're all lined up against Donald Trump. And I'm starting to wonder why that is. That's it, everyone. Episode 10. We will be back hopefully within the next week to 2 weeks. We're trying to figure out where to take the show from here. Again, like I said, 11 through 20, we're still rolling forward. We will take call-ins and we'll get that system set up. Like I said, a lot of equipment in front of us. We've got to figure out how to use some of it, how to take advantage of it. But we want to do whenever we do the next show, and hopefully it's soon, we want to do call-ins and we want to do some reporting from the field. Hopefully do some reporting from the Donald Trump rallies and press conferences live from the arena on the next episode. Have a great Monday, everyone. Debates tomorrow. Can't wait to talk about that. Have a good night. Take care.
Twisting, turning further from my home. Young